Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. From the wine cave to Napa Valley, Pete Buttigieg appeared at Nancy Pelosi's Super Bowl of fundraisers this past weekend in Napa, California, where elitist, mostly corrupt Democratic Party donors got together to hear from their fearless leaders. Pelosi, Buttigieg, former Attorney General Eric Holder was there, the head of the DCCC, Sean Patrick Maloney was there, just the good old gang of corporate Democrats speaking to their people, the mega donors in Napa Valley. Here's a photo of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in Napa at Pelosi's Napa Winery fundraiser. There you have Mayor Pete, I'm sure, talking about the future generation of leadership. Have not identified those donors because that photo shows their backs, but I am digging in a little more into who was there. But needless to say, I've covered fundraisers and donor events for quite some time, and Pete Buttigieg was not speaking with the worker bees in Napa Valley. And this shindig that happened this past weekend, which might be Pelosi's final, because there are, chattering that she might retire if Democrats lose the House. But it's kind of known as like the biggest Democratic fundraiser of the year. And Pelosi, who is the Democratic Party's biggest and most successful corporate fundraiser, she's raised, God knows, hundreds of millions of dollars in her career from Wall Street, big pharma, fossil fuels, big tech, real estate, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a big ticket to get an invitation to speak in front of the donors. Obviously, Pete Buttigieg traveling to Napa to speak with these fine aristocrats in the crowd that buy off the Democratic Party. Obviously, we know he's angling for a certain future, kind of hoping Biden announces he's not running in 2024. Let me tell you a little bit more about this hot ticket event in Napa that Pete just spoke at. This is from Puck News. Napa, of course, is the donor world metonym for the August retreat that makes the highlight of the Pelosi-era fundraising circuit. Every summer during the congressional recess, Pelosi and dozens of Democratic lawmakers converge on the vineyards north of San Francisco to snap photos and entertain donors in an ornately arranged pageant of fundraising events across the region, all organized by Pelosi's office and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. It's a weekend that showcases Team Pelosi's finesse, attention to detail, and careful donor maintenance that she has cultivated over decades. Gotta love donor maintenance. And we are told we live in a representative democracy. The quote 2022 DCCC Napa Valley Weekend and Issues Conference from August 19th to 21st is open to all the so-called quote Speaker's Cabinet members, a top bundling category for the Pelosi team, meaning the people, the wealthy men and women who raised the most amount of money for the Democratic Party. They're part of the quote Speaker's Cabinet members. The donors at center stage tend to be more Bay Area old money than tech money. Among the main players at the Napa event traditionally are vinters like Catherine Hall, the Obama-era ambassador, now more recently known for hosting the infamous Pete Buttigieg Wine Cave fundraiser of 2020, and members of the Staglin family, who run their own winery in Rutherford and are hosting donors at their home for a Saturday luncheon. Special guests this year include Buttigieg and Eric Holder. Quote, everyone in the political fundraising world in D.C. knows what a hot ticket Napa is, as one Democratic fundraiser familiar with the event put it to me. Quote, there's a lot of mystique around it. That mystique is hardly because the Napa weekend is some sort of secret. Last summer, the retreat made rare headlines with a made-for-Fox controversy over a maskless outdoor lunch. But it is logistically complex in a way that defies simple media coverage. Typically, dozens of members of Congress flow into the Bay Area for a series of fundraisers that surround the annual Pelosi-driven confab. For instance, Schiff has a fundraiser on Thursday evening in San Francisco. On Sunday morning, Pelosi, the DCCC chair, Sean Patrick Maloney, and Napa Congresswoman Congressman Mike Thompson are hosting a brunch in Yountville alongside 15 battleground Democratic congressional candidates who are in town, with tickets ranging from the $100 price for paupers, oh, I should have went, to a max out check to each $43,500. Man, that better be a damn good French toast and mimosa combo platter. With so many candidates encircling the same few donors and interest groups, organizing Tetris is required. For instance, some Native American tribes host their own events that run concurrently with the main Pelosi-led schedule. Team Pelosi will put on their own policy and politics roundtables for donors on specific topics, but donors often like to skip the sessions to do their own wine tours and return for the lunches and dinners. Or this year, a Saturday evening cocktail reception at the Pelosi's longtime local estate in St. Helena. Quote, "It's mostly a weekend-long sales pitch," one donor and frequent attendee said. Quote, "Except instead of a timeshare, it's a Democratic majority." Oh, my God. The weekend is particularly momentous this year, not because it comes on the heels of Paul Pelosi's unfortunate DUI arrest in Napa County, but because it can plausibly be the last time that the weekend ever happens, at least one with fanfare like this. Again, no one will admit it, of course. Pelosi is running for re-election this fall and continues to insist that she means it when she says she's sticking around. Nevertheless, the succession chatter is simmering in Pelosi's home district. All right, that's enough of that. So why is this important? Of course, it's not breaking news that Pelosi is corrupt, that Pete Buttigieg is corrupt, but it kind of shows you, in a normal, sane, civilized society, this kind of thing would be frowned upon. Democrat donor maintenance. How about maintaining your relationships with working people? How about doing fundraisers where you speak to working people and try to get, $10, $20 at a time? How about all the folks fly in, 15 congressional candidates are flying into Napa to basically slobber over the donors' backsides to get their cash? How about you go to Flint, Detroit, I don't know, Kentucky's flooded right now, and try to speak with working people? Maybe that will help your election chances. The corruption is so normalized in this country that this kind of thing is just reported on like it's a normal news story. It shouldn't be normal that literally the wealthiest people in this country are like cascading into Napa Valley to hear pitches from politicians that are supposed to, represent us to get their cash. Of course, the Republicans are just as corrupt. They hold their big dollar fundraising events. The Kochs did it for years. There's all sorts of wealthy. The Mercers do it. So this isn't really unique to the Democrats versus Republicans. They're all corrupt. They all hold these basically glorified spa weekends for the donors to get their cash. But how do we expect anything to actually structurally change in this country when Democrats are run by people that instead of actually doing for the people, maybe Pete Buttigieg, instead of flying to Napa to grease the skids of donors, because he obviously wants to run in 2024, if Biden's going to drop out and not run, maybe he could find some airlines, because we're still having massive problems at airports around the country. Maybe he could do something about the massive problems in the railroad industry. I just did an interview the other day. We're potentially on the verge of a massive strike of over 100,000 railroad workers going on strike because the railroad industry, which Buttigieg isn't going to do a goddamn thing to punish, has passed down draconian attendance policies, barely gives freight and railroad workers days off, and has offered pay increases that don't even match the massive inflation we're seeing. But Buttigieg isn't going to go, to the fundraisers with working people. He's not going to go and speak to the railroad workers about his plans, right? No, he's going to Napa to speak to them about their plans, speak to the donors to massage them about what we're going to do for you if you help us keep the Senate and take back the House, i.e., here's what we'll say we'll do to make it look like we're pretty progressive and, for the working man and woman, but here's what we're going to give you, which is continuing to give you caviar, continuing to give you champagne, continuing to give you delicious red velvet cake, personally, I prefer with strawberry inside. Red velvet cake with, some people like vanilla infusion, chocolate infusion inside. I like the strawberry. But at the end of the day, this kind of stuff, so that they get money now for the House, the Senate, governor's races, Pete is obviously speaking in front of these donors to impress them. They like his McKinsey style rhetoric. They like his, oh God, he's so articulate and well-spoken. What a vision on this man. They don't particularly care that he gentrified 4 or 5 blocks in South Bend, Indiana, and then left the rest of the city to rot. They don't particularly care that he bulldozed 1,000 homes in 1,000 days, mostly in black and brown parts of South Bend, Indiana, which Status Coup went and covered. We showed you this sea of empty lots where Buttigieg had bulldozed homes that many black and brown residents had pleaded with his administration not to do. The point of all this is the continued cycle that we will always see in America. Because A, we don't have elected progressives that are willing to leverage their power to fight back. We don't have elected progressives that are willing to use their vote to block the crumb cakes we continually see from Bernie to the squad. They've basically went along to get along. And in the short term, when they were holding fast for a few months, not willing to vote for the bipartisan infrastructure deal unless the Build Back Better was attached to it, they folded like cheap tents when there was just a hint of pressure and heat coming from the Democratic establishment and the media. But the other thing is, until you threaten, not violently, of course, we're not talking about violence, until you threaten the donors' wallets, the corporations' wallets, the corporate CEOs' wallets, the corporate shareholders' wallets through mass economic organizing, mass economic boycotts, continuing this union movement, continuing these worker strikes, continuing disrupting through tenants unions, which I just covered. The Kansas City Tenants Union has been doing disruptive things. We're going to just continue to see corporate Democrats being corporate Democrats, flying out to Napa, from wine caves to the vineyards, the sales pitch to the donors, while, giving you progressive sounding rhetoric, but really screwing you in the backside. I also want to show we should look at the current political situation. I mean, Buttigieg is an ambitious fella, and a recent poll, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg received slightly more support compared to President Biden among likely 2024 New Hampshire Democratic primary voters when asked their first choice for president, according to a new poll released Tuesday. University of New Hampshire Survey Center Granite poll found that 17% of likely 2024 Democratic primary voters in New Hampshire would choose Buttigieg among a list of Democrats or those who caucus with Democrats. Biden received 16%, so right after him, followed by Elizabeth Warren and California Governor Gavin Newsom, who each came in at 10. Bernie received less than 10%. So, New Hampshire, majority white. Pete Buttigieg did fairly well in majority white places, did really badly in states with black voters, Hispanic voters. But Pete is angling, and that's why he's flying to Napa. And it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's really a shame that at this point, there's such a deflated progressive base that if Pete, for whatever reason, if it's Biden, decides not to run again, I think Pete would challenge Kamala Harris because he has no shame and he's not going to respect, potentially the first woman president, potentially the first black woman president. At this point, unless it's Bernie again or some progressive that shows some spine and shows some fight against the Democratic establishment before they run, I could see Pete Buttigieg as a Democratic nominee. And let me tell you something, he would get absolutely crushed by Trump, DeSantis, or any Republican like them. So that's your Napa Valley mega Democratic Party fundraiser shindig report. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.